Hello, friends. Today we are going to discuss how to have sex like a Stoic, a guide to mindful intimacy. The Stoic philosophy encourages deep understanding and respect in sexual relationships, as in all aspects of life. In this video, we will explore how intimacy and sexuality can be lived more meaningfully and mindfully. Stoic thinkers emphasize the importance of keeping our emotions in check. In this context, we need to see our sexual experiences not only as a physical act, but also as an opportunity for emotional and mental connection. Being mindful, communicating clearly with your partner, and living in the moment are critical in this process. Through this guide, you will examine many important elements, from mutual respect to emotional depth, and learn how to create a healthy intimacy. Let's embark on this journey together and discover the Stoic teachings that make our relationships richer. There will be a lot of people who will distort the intent of this video. So I want to warn in advance that this video is not for everyone. If you are someone who indiscriminately jumps at every sexual opportunity easily triggered by a bare arm, feigns moral outrage while harboring questionable desires, or hides behind a mask of honesty, this video is not for you. Who covets his neighbor's honor? This video is definitely not for people who have a separate fantasy for every 100 people they see in their minds, who perceive every look, every gesture, every outfit as an invitation, who engage in prostitution but never walk around in the fetus, who create the image of being the most honorable person in the world by walking around like a moral monument if you ask them. This video is about going deeper, about exploring a Stoic perspective on sexuality, a philosophy that goes beyond cheap thrills and superficial urges. Do not expect this video to glorify or romanticize sex. We're not going to sugarcoat anything or tell you to unleash your inner animal. Instead, we will draw on the wisdom of the ancient Stoics who lived 2,000 years ago. They offered a radical but surprisingly relevant perspective on these most primal urges. We will reveal that the Stoics saw sex not as a moral battleground, but as a natural part of life. We will explore their emphasis on self-education, moderation, and respect for others, and challenge conventional thinking that equates sexual freedom with happiness. The video is a call to think critically rather than just reacting instinctively. It is an invitation to question your assumptions, broaden your perspective, and discover a more mindful, intentional, and ultimately more fulfilling approach to sexuality. So if you're ready to challenge the status quo and discover a different way of thinking about sex, stick around. Because it's going to be a wild ride. How did the antics naturalists, the masters of logic and virtue, approach sex, love, and relationships? Were they chaste people who knew no passion or secret hedonists? And more importantly, how can their wisdom help us navigate the complexities of modern intimacy? If these questions have crossed your mind, you are in the right place. In this video, we will explore 9 essential insights from Stoic philosophy that offer a surprisingly relevant and refreshing perspective on sexuality. But before we get into it, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell. That way you won't miss our future explorations, and trust me, you'll want to stay until the end. Sex is one of the most basic and universal human experiences. But it is also an endless source of fascination, confusion, and even conflict. It can be a source of immense pleasure, connection, and joy, as well as bitter heartbreak and regret. It can elevate our well-being or become a destructive obsession. So how do we navigate this complex terrain? How can we enjoy sex without becoming slaves to it? Desire and reason. How can we balance pleasure with virtue and develop healthy, fulfilling relationships that respect both ourselves and our partners? With their emphasis on reason, virtue, and living according to nature, the Stoics offer a unique and valuable framework for understanding and approaching sexuality. The Stoics were neither puritanical abstainers nor unrestrained libertines. Instead, they sought a balanced, mindful approach that could lead to a fulfilling and meaningful life. If you are ready to challenge your assumptions, broaden your perspective, and explore a new way of thinking about this most primal of human impulses, we begin now. The first thing the Stoics teach us about sex is that it is natural and indifferent. The Stoics offer a very understandable view of sex. Sex is a natural part of human existence. It is not a matter of innate morality. This does not mean that they see sex as something unimportant. On the contrary, they see it as a fundamental aspect of our biology and social nature. The Stoics believed that everything in the universe, including ourselves, was governed by a rational order. A cosmic intelligence they called the Logos, which also exists within us and enables us to reason and act in harmony with nature. How does sexuality fit into this picture? For the Stoics, sex is one of the many natural urges we experience. It has a biological purpose, like hunger or thirst. Reproduction and bonding are also natural drives that we share with other animals. But unlike other drives, sex is often entangled in a web of emotions, expectations, and social norms. The Stoics encouraged us to see sex as it is. A natural impulse is not something to be ashamed of or overly celebrated. It is neither inherently good nor bad. Rather, it is indifferent in itself. Its moral value lies in how we choose to use it. This naturalistic approach does not mean that the Stoics advocated unlimited tolerance. Instead, they encouraged us to deal with sex carefully, using reason to guide our actions and to ensure that our sexual behavior is compatible with our pursuit of a virtuous and fulfilling life. In the Stoic view, sex is not the ultimate goal of life, but it can be part of a good life when approached with wisdom and moderation. It is a tool, not a tyrant, and our happiness depends on how skillfully we use it. The second thing the Stoics teach us about sex is that they distinguish between three main types of love based on Greek words and value each according to its contribution to human flourishing. The Stoics did not see love as just one emotion. They recognized its many faces and nuances. They identified three basic types of love, each with its own characteristics and role in a fulfilling life. Philia is love based on friendship, mutual respect, trust, and shared values. Philia is about a genuine bond, the kind that elevates both parties and fosters a sense of community. The Stoics saw philia as the most valuable form of love. This is because reason is compatible with virtue and the natural human tendency towards social harmony. Eros is romantic love. Romance is passionate, often intense love associated with desire and physical attraction. While the Stoics did not reject Eros, they warned against excessive attachment. They recognized its potential to be fickle, irrational, and even destructive if not restrained by reason and self-control. Agape is universal love, a broader, more inclusive love for humanity as a whole. It is a feeling of compassion, benevolence, and goodwill towards all beings, regardless of personal affection or attraction. Agape may seem less emotionally charged than philia or eros, but the Stoics saw it as a powerful force for good in the world. The Stoics did not see these forms of love as mutually exclusive. They can coexist and even enhance each other. However, they emphasize the importance of giving philia and agape more priority than eros. Why? Because eros, left unchecked, can easily become a source of turmoil, distraction, and even pain. The Stoics did not advocate suppressing desire, but directing it in ways that promote virtue, happiness, and meaningful connections. In the Stoic view, a life rich in philia and agape is a life well lived. While eros can be enjoyable, it should be approached with moderation and judgment, always keeping in mind the pursuit of a wider life guided by reason and virtue. The third thing we need to understand about the Stoics' views on sex is that they advocated self-control, moderation, and neutrality in sexual matters, avoiding excesses, attachments, and passions that could disturb their inner peace and harmony with nature. Naturalists did not see sexuality as a wild horse to be tamed, but as a natural force to be used skillfully like any other. Their approach emphasized three basic principles for a healthy and satisfying sex life. As self-control, the Stoics believed that reason should be the arbiter of our emotions, including sexual desire. This does not mean suppressing our impulses, but understanding them and directing them wisely. By developing self-control, we avoid becoming slaves to our passions. We make choices in line with our values and goals. 2. Moderation. The Stoics were advocates of the golden ratio. Finding the sweet spot between excess and deficiency applies to this sex as well. They did not advocate excessive indulgence or strict abstinence. Instead, they sought a balanced approach that nourished body and soul without becoming an obsession. 3. Separation may seem counterintuitive when it comes to something as intimate as sex. But the Stoics emphasize the importance of not clinging to outcomes or becoming overly attached to our partners. This does not mean being cold or uncaring. Rather, it means developing a sense of inner peace and flexibility that allows us to enjoy the pleasures of sexuality without becoming dependent on them for our happiness. By adopting these principles, the Stoics believed that we can navigate the complexities of sex with greater wisdom and serenity. They offered a framework for making choices that support our overall well-being, not strict rules or prohibitions. The Stoic approach to sex was not about ready rejection, but about maximizing it in a sustainable and meaningful way. By cultivating self-control, moderation, and commitment, we can transform sexuality from a potential source of anxiety and frustration to a source of joy, connection, and personal growth. The fourth thing the Stoics teach us about sex is that they practiced exercises and techniques for dealing with sexual impulses, such as forethought of evils, self-examination, and reframing impressions. The Stoics understood that sexual desire, like any strong emotion, can be difficult to manage. They advocated not suppressing these emotions, but approaching them with wisdom and practical techniques. Here are 3 of their basic strategies. Anticipating the evils of a premeditation malorum. This practice involves mentally rehearsing possible setbacks or difficulties we may encounter in our sex life. By anticipating things like rejection, heartbreak, or the transience of passion, we can prepare ourselves emotionally and lessen the impact when they happen. This does not mean dwelling on the negative. Rather, it means developing a realistic perspective that recognizes the full spectrum of human experience. 2. Self-examination. The Stoics emphasized regular introspection as a way of aligning our actions with our values. This includes reflecting on our sexual behavior, choices, and attitudes. By honestly evaluating ourselves, we can identify areas for improvement, strengthen positive patterns, and ensure that our sexual lives are in harmony with our broader pursuit of virtue and happiness. 3. Reframing impressions. This technique involves challenging our initial perceptions and judgments about sexual experiences. The Stoics taught that our happiness or unhappiness often results not from the events themselves, but from how we interpret them. By consciously reframing our impressions, we can develop a more resilient and balanced attitude toward sex by focusing on what we can control, our own choices and actions, rather than what we cannot control, such as desire and the unpredictable nature of relationships. These Stoic practices are not about denying or avoiding sexual desire. Instead, they offer a roadmap for skillfully navigating sexual desire, minimizing potential pitfalls and maximizing the potential for joyful connection and personal growth. The 5th thing we need to understand about the Stoics' views on sex is that they dealt with sexual problems and challenges such as infertility, impotence, adultery, and rape by applying the principles of rationality, resilience, and justice. The Stoics recognized that sexuality, like all aspects of life, is not immune from difficulties. From infertility and impotence to infidelity and assault, they understood that these experiences could be painful, frustrating, and even unjust. But instead of despairing, they offered a framework for facing these challenges with wisdom and strength. The Stoic approach to sexual issues was based on 3 basic principles. Irrationality. The Stoics encouraged us to use reason to understand the nature of our problems. This includes analyzing the causes, considering potential solutions, and accepting what is beyond our control. By approaching challenges with an open mind, we can avoid unnecessary suffering and make informed decisions. 2. Resilience. The Stoics believed in the power of endurance. The ability to endure hardship and emerge stronger. They saw challenges as opportunities for growth that test our character and reveal the strength within us. By enduring sexual difficulties with courage and grace, we can discover new depths of resilience and find meaning even in the face of adversity. 3. Justice. The Stoics emphasized the importance of being fair both to ourselves and to others. This means holding ourselves responsible for our own actions, forgiving ourselves for our mistakes, and seeking to make amends when we have caused harm. It also means defending our rights, advocating fair treatment, and showing compassion for those who have been wronged. By applying these principles, the Stoics believed that we can transform sexual difficulties from sources of despair into opportunities for growth and transformation. They taught that even the most difficult experiences can be faced with dignity, courage, and ultimately, an unwavering commitment to living a virtuous and fulfilling life. The 6th thing we need to understand about the Stoics' views on sex is that they approached marriage and family life not as a source of happiness or fulfillment, but as a social duty and a natural bond. The Stoics did not see marriage and family as romantic fairy tales or guaranteed sources of happiness. Instead, they saw them as natural institutions with important social functions and moral obligations. In the Stoic view, marriage and family were compatible with the broader goal of living in harmony with nature. They recognized that human beings are social creatures and that family structures play a crucial role in sustaining communities, raising the next generation, and encouraging cooperation. This is not to say that the Stoics idealized family life. They understood that marriage and parenthood can be challenging, demanding, and sometimes even painful. But they believed that by approaching these relationships with reason, virtue, and a sense of duty, individuals could find meaning and fulfillment in them. For the Stoics, marriage was not only about personal happiness or emotional fulfillment. It was a commitment to the common good, a way of contributing to society and practicing virtues such as patience, kindness, and fidelity. Similarly, parenthood was not just about creating a legacy or experiencing unconditional love. It was a responsibility to raise children who would become virtuous, productive members of society. This pragmatic perspective does not mean that the Stoics were cold or callous about family ties. They recognized the natural love and bonds that develop within the family. But they emphasized the importance of tempering these feelings with reason and a sense of duty. In the Stoic view, a successful marriage or family life was not defined by external circumstances or the absence of conflict. It was determined by the character of the individuals involved and their commitment to living in accordance with nature and virtue. By approaching family life with this mindset, the Stoics believed that we can find more meaning, resilience, and even joy in these relationships. The seventh thing we need to understand about the Stoics' views on sex is that in sexual and romantic contexts, such as dating, courtship, and separation, they related to other people in a way that respected their dignity, autonomy, and preferences, and that was honest, faithful, and generous. The Stoics did not see other human beings merely as objects of desire or glory. They recognized the innate dignity and autonomy of each individual and believed that our relationships should be characterized by respect, honesty, and generosity. According to them, other people are our companions on the path of life, each with their own unique perspectives and experiences. We are bound to them by a common humanity, a common cause, and a mutual need for connection. This does not mean that the Stoics were naive about the complexity of relationships. They understood that conflicts, misunderstandings, and even heartbreak are inevitable. But they believed that we can overcome these difficulties with honesty and compassion by adhering to basic principles. The Stoics taught us to see others as equals, regardless of their social status, appearance, or sexual orientation. This means honoring their limitations, valuing their opinions, and treating them with kindness and care. In the Stoic view, honesty is not just avoiding lies, but living in accordance with truth and authenticity. It means being frank about our intentions, expressing our needs and desires clearly, and avoiding manipulation or deception. The Stoics believed that true generosity goes beyond material possessions. It is about giving from ourselves. By freely offering these gifts of our time, attention, empathy, and support, we not only enrich the lives of others, but also develop our own capacity for love and connection. By practicing these principles, the Stoics believed, we can build relationships that are not only mutually enjoyable, but also deeply meaningful and fulfilling. They understood that lasting happiness comes not from exploiting or controlling others, but from building a genuine connection based on a spirit of mutual respect, honesty, and generosity. The eighth thing we need to understand about the Stoics' views on sex is that they address the ethical and social implications of sexuality, such as contraception, abortion, prostitution, and pornography, by applying the criteria of naturalness, usefulness, and appropriateness. The Stoics did not shy away from the ethical and social complexities of sex. They recognized that our sexual choices have ripple effects that affect both ourselves and others. And they provided a framework for addressing these issues with openness and moral courage. At the heart of the Stoic approach are three guiding principles. A naturalness. The Stoics wanted us to consider the natural purpose of sex when making decisions. This meant recognizing the biological imperative of procreation, but also understanding that sex serves other functions, such as bonding and pleasure. By aligning our actions with a natural order, we avoid harmful or exploitative behavior. 2. This utilitarianism first encouraged naturalists to consider the consequences of their sexual choices. Will a particular action contribute to their general well-being and the well-being of others? Will it promote harmony and cooperation within society? By choosing useful and beneficial actions, we create a more positive and fulfilling sexual culture. 3. Compliance. The Stoics believed that our actions should reflect our values and social roles. This meant considering the context of a situation and choosing behaviors that are respectful and consistent with our duties and obligations. By acting appropriately, we maintain our integrity and contribute to a more ethical and harmonious society. From this perspective, the Stoics approached complex issues such as contraception, abortion, prostitution, and pornography in a nuanced and careful way. They did not offer a one-size-fits-all answer. Instead, they encouraged individuals to engage in a reasoned dialogue, weigh the possible consequences of their actions, and make choices that are consistent with their values and the greater good. The approach to sexuality was not about imposing rigid, prescriptive rules or condemning certain behaviors. It was about developing a sense of responsibility, judgment, and wisdom in our sexual lives. By considering the naturalness, usefulness, and appropriateness of our actions, we can create a more ethical, compassionate, and ultimately more fulfilling sexual culture for ourselves and our communities. The ninth and final thing we need to understand about the Stoics' views on sex is that they saw their views on sex as relevant and useful for modern people, offering a rational, balanced, and virtuous perspective on one of the most important aspects of human life. The approach offers a refreshing alternative to the excesses of both puritanical repression and hedonistic indulgence. It offers a framework for navigating the complexities of modern intimacy with wisdom, balance, and integrity. What can we learn from the Stoics today? A rational approach to desire can use our logic to understand and manage our impulses rather than being driven by them. We can make choices that are in line with our values and goals. In a culture that often overvalorizes the importance of moderation, the Stoics remind us of the value of balance and moderation. By avoiding extremes, we can develop a more sustainable and fulfilling sex life. We can develop greater inner peace and resilience by not being bound by the consequences of separation, or by not solely attributing our happiness to external factors such as romantic relationships. Respect for ourselves and others. The Stoic emphasis on treating others with dignity, honesty, and generosity provides a solid foundation for building healthy and fulfilling relationships. A framework for ethical decision-making. The Stoic principles of naturalness, beneficence, and appropriateness can guide us through complex ethical issues related to sex and relationships. By embracing these Stoic insights, we can transform our relationship with sex. We can develop greater self-awareness and deeper, more meaningful connections with others. Sonographers did not claim to have all the answers, but their wisdom offers a valuable starting point for anyone seeking a more mindful, balanced, and fulfilling approach to sexuality in the 21st century. This concludes our exploration of Stoicism and sex. I hope this journey into ancient wisdom has been both thought-provoking and enlightening. The Stoics remind us that sex is not something to worship or demonize. Sexuality is a natural part of life and, like everything else, can be used for good or evil. The important thing lies in our approach, virtue, and a careful awareness of our own actions and their consequences. It is important to note that this video is not intended to praise or condemn sex. It is about understanding sexuality through a different lens, one that emphasizes balance, self-control, and a focus on living in accordance with our deeper values. The Stoic perspective may challenge some of your assumptions and even go against our current cultural norms, but that is precisely why it is so valuable. It encourages us to step outside conventional narratives and pay more attention to sexuality. Lee invites us to explore a more mindful, intentional, and ultimately more satisfying approach to sexuality. So whether you are single or in a relationship, struggling with sexual issues, or simply curious about different perspectives, I encourage you to reflect on these Stoic insights. If you found this video helpful or interesting, please consider sharing it with others who might benefit. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss our future explorations of Stoicism and the art of living well. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Remember, as the Stoics taught us, live well, live wisely, be stoic, and stay strong.